Hey guys, my name is Yasmina and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to talk to you about editing, manuscript editing, specifically for fiction because that's just what I'm more used to, and having been through a few types of editing with my book at this point myself, I feel like I can give a better overview of what all the different types of editing are, what you can get, where to find these editors, and kind of what price point to expect for each one. So if you're thinking of finding an editor for your manuscript, or you're just not sure which type of editing you need, then stay tuned because I will tell you all about the different types of editing. And this will only cover sort of professional editing that you can hire out. It does not cover self-editing. I have a few videos on that myself, the self-editing that I have done, so I'll link some of those vlogs, writing vlogs, in the description if you're interested. But this is just about professional editing and hiring professional editors and the different types of editing you can get. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we will go in order of the most general editing down to the most detailed editing, and that's usually how you would go about editing your manuscripts anyway. So the first type of editing you can get is called a manuscript assessment or an editorial assessment. This is usually the very first look that someone gets at your manuscript. It's a very broad, general assessment of your manuscript and your story. So for this type of editing, you can expect general feedback on the strengths and weaknesses of your manuscript, the strengths and weaknesses of you yourself as a writer, also the sort of general feedback on your characters and the story structure. So for this type of editing, you will not get any sort of inline comments from the editor. Instead, you will get a letter, an editorial letter from the editor with all of the feedback and all of their thoughts upon reading your manuscript. So this type of editing, like I said, is kind of like the first step. So it's useful if you've just finished writing a story and you're just not sure if it's any good, you're not sure if you have been going in the right direction with your story, with your characters, and you just want that very first look from someone. And maybe, you don't have a critique partner or anything like that. So it's useful in those cases, if you really want that opinion, to then pay a professional to look over your manuscript, have a read through, and then give you this general feedback. And it usually can point you, of course, in the sort of right direction to go to improve your manuscript. In terms of pricing, this usually is on the lower end of pricing, so you can expect something like 0.015 cents up to 0.022 cents according to RØDE. All these price points are per word, and all of these price points, imagine a book around 70 to 75,000 words, so a very kind of mid-length, normal word count. Just so you're aware, obviously, if you have a longer book, it's going to cost more money. If you have a shorter book, it's going to cost less money. Okay, so after the manuscript assessment, the second type of editing you can get is called the developmental edit or content editing. So this is the biggest and definitely the most expensive type of editing you can get. In a lot of ways, it is similar to the manuscript assessment. However, it goes a lot more in depth into everything about your story. So this type of editing also looks into your plot holes, the story structure, your characters, your strengths as a writer, so the voice that you're writing with, things like that. But this offers very detailed feedback on all of those things, as opposed to the assessment, which offered very kind of broad, general feedback. And then, like I said, it also goes more in depth, so it looks at sort of character motivation, pacing, the theme of your manuscript. So alongside pointing out all the strengths and weaknesses with this type of editing, you will also get help to how you can improve the weaknesses and how you can strengthen the strengths of your manuscript. So you can expect inline comments in your actual manuscript of how you can fix some of these issues, where these issues may occur in the story. And you will also at the same time get a detailed editorial letter on everything about your story. So this type of editing is definitely very, very in-depth and can be very, very helpful. And I would say I would recommend this type of editing if, for example, this is your very first book that you've ever finished writing, and you know that writing and publishing is something that you definitely want to pursue in the future, but you want to make sure that you're kind of going in the right direction and you want to get some help with fixing some of your weaknesses as a writer and, of course, the weaknesses in your story. Though this type of editing is definitely very expensive, I think it is worthwhile to do at least once, at least for the first book in your series or something like that, just so you can kind of get some help with those, bumps in the road that'll definitely make your career and your path as a writer and as an author easier. Because if you get all these things out of the way, you will definitely improve a lot faster than if you were to go by it, on your own and try to fix all these issues when you come across them, if someone, a critique partner or someone mentions them along the way. But like this, you can kind of get all that insight all at once and then work on improving your craft. But like I said, this type of editing is the most expensive, so you can expect to shell out quite a lot of money on this. So again, it is not something I would recommend to do on every book that you write. And it's definitely not something I would recommend to everyone. So definitely think through if you really want to spend this amount of money on a developmental edit. But if you decide to do, the price you can expect is around 0.022 to 0.036 cents, and that should be around at least $2,000. Next up, we have copy and line editing. So, copy and line editing. What is the difference? I'll go into that. Sometimes you can find this type of editing in one, so they combine it, but really copy and line editing are two different types of editing. They are very similar, but they each kind of focus on different things. But some editors will do both of these in one service or will split them out. So for example, in my experience, I have done both a line edit and a copy edit separately. And the editors, they were two different editors and they focused on very different things, which in my case helped a lot. But again, it just really depends on what you're looking for and how much money you want to spend. So in terms of the differences between copy and line editing, like I said, they can be combined or they can be separated, and the line is a little bit blurred because a line editor may sometimes also fix grammar issues and vice versa. But in general, line edits focus a lot more on style and content than copy edits, which focus more on grammar and spelling and repetition and, em dashes, things like that. Now, I should say that this type of editing should only really be done after you have fixed all of the issues that have come up in either a manuscript assessment or a developmental edit or in any self-edits that you have previously done, because this type of editing is very detailed. It goes line by line, word by word, and it helps fix all the grammar, all the sentence structure, help fix repetition, styling, inconsistencies. It really, really goes super in depth. So there's really no point in going this far with your editing if your story and your characters are not there, because then you're just wasting a lot of money, because you're probably going to have to cut out a lot of scenes and generally change your manuscript. So you don't want to do this until you're sure that your story, plot, and characters are strong before you jump into this type of edit. This type of editing also does things like make sure your use of commas is consistent. So whether you use the Oxford comma or not, for example, that you have consistent usage of em dashes, of ellipses. Also things like American versus British spelling. This was, for example, a problem in my manuscript because I wrote it in British English, but unconsciously sometimes you just write in American English without really realizing. So my editor definitely helped with pointing out where I was using American versus instead of British English and helped to fix those instances. This also looks at point of view and tense slips. So for example, if you're supposed to be writing your manuscript in first person present tense, but you unconsciously slipped into third person past tense, for example, when you shouldn't have, the editor will also point that out and fix that for you. So for this type of edit, you absolutely can expect to get back a manuscript that is filled with corrections and red strike-throughs and a lot of changes. But usually the editors will use Microsoft Word to track the changes. So you can see what they've corrected and what they've changed, but you can also see what you had before. So you can always go back to the previous sentence if you don't agree. Of course, these are, as with anything, all of these are suggestions. I mean, except if it's really like a grammar mistake, then even in this case, they're all suggestions and the editor will do the track changes and you can either approve or decline a change that they made. Another fun thing that this type of edit will do is you will get a style sheet with all of the sort of special words that you have in your manuscript, all your characters or all your names. It's mostly for the editor to make sure that everything is consistent, but it also helps you as the author, especially if you're writing a series and this is the first book in a series. It's going to help a lot to get this kind of style sheet. It also note your preference of em-dashes, ellipses, British versus American English. All these things you just have in one useful file that you can then reference. In terms of pricing, this is somewhere in the mid-range of pricing, so you can expect something like 0.018 cents to 0.025 cents per word, and that should be around $1,500, $1,600. I should say that personally, this is the type of editing I would recommend everyone do. If you don't want to shell out on a developmental edit, on a proofread, you have someone who's really, really good at proofreading and you can have a friend look over it. However, I will absolutely say that you should not skip copy editing or line editing, combined or vice versa. It doesn't matter. This is the type of edit I would urge every single writer you need to do. You need to have an editor, you need to have a professional edit, and this is the edit I recommend you go for. I've spent money on this and I do not regret this. I think it has improved my writing so much and my manuscript so much. So if you have a limited budget and you only want to spend money on one type of edit, this is the one you should go for. Okay, and the very last type of editing is called proofreading. So again, this is after you have done all of the copy and line edit changes that your editor would have recommended. Now your manuscript is clean. However, through the process of you changing your manuscript again based on the copy and line edits, you will probably have introduced new errors. So a proofread is really like the very last step, the last set of eyes, the last check that goes over your manuscript to make sure everything is perfect. So again, it includes things like misuse of commas, if you have a double space instead of a one space, so formatting issues, awkward kind of breaks of words in paragraphs. All these things kind of very detailed, but again, your manuscript should already be, I would say, 99% there before you get to the proofreading edit. And this is just to catch those very, very last little things before the manuscript is final and it can go to publication. And so in terms of pricing, this is definitely the cheapest edit you can get, and you can expect something like 0.013 cents to 0.016 cents per word, and that's around 1,000. Those were the types of editing you can expect to find. So now let's get into where do you even find these editors? So as I mentioned, the pricing that I used for all these types of edits to illustrate how much you can expect to pay are all based on Reedsy pricing. And so Reedsy is a platform for writers where writers can go to find professionals to help with their writing and publishing journey. However, like I mentioned, it is definitely on the more expensive side, so the editors that you will find here charge what I told you before. And from personal experience, you can definitely find cheaper and in some cases better editors. More expensive doesn't always equate to more quality in my experience. So what I've done, I have submitted a request on Reedsy for a sample edit, and I think you can choose 5 editors at once and submit a sample edit, so you can submit 3 pages or 1,000 words or something like that, and then you get sample edits from your chosen 5 editors. And based on that, I decided Is it worth spending this amount of money on a RØDE editor, or should I look somewhere else? And so after that, I went and looked somewhere else. And again, in my personal experience, I have found that the editors I found in different places did better edits than the ones I found on RØDE. But again, this is just based on my personal experience on the few editors that I chose off RØDE. I'm sure there are fantastic editors out there. So my recommendation is to absolutely ask for a sample edit, both on RØDE and on any other platform where you will go to find editors, and then, you know, check all of them, compare them to each other, and make sure that your money will be spent in a worthwhile way. Make sure you get a quality edit for your money. Some alternatives to RØDE from personal experience, I have found Facebook writing groups, Facebook author groups are a fantastic resource because they will frequently have people recommending editors to each other, or editors kind of advertising themselves, and then people can, you know, talk about their personal experiences with those editors in the comments. You can just post on one of these Facebook groups and ask for recommendations for editors, and you'll get a ton of responses. Just search for, you know, writing groups or author groups on Facebook. There is plenty of really, really big ones, and I would highly recommend looking there. And like I said, ask for sample edits. If an editor is not going to provide a sample edit, don't go with that editor. You can also look up books in your genre that you like, books that are similar to what you're writing, and see if they credit their editor. Sometimes in the beginning of the book, authors will give credit to the editors that they've worked with, especially self-published authors. I find a lot of times will give credit to the editors they work with. So if there's a book that you really like the way it was read, and you think the editor did a good job, then check. And if they don't have that information on their copyrights and information page in the front of the book, you can always DM the author on social media and ask what editors they use and if they would recommend working with them, things like that. Of course, if you have any writing friends, ask them if they've used an editor and what they would recommend. And then in general, as with anything social media, I've also found success on Reddit. The Reddit writing subreddit or self-publishing subreddit, or all these types of subreddits, are great places where, again, both writers and editors congregate, and you can definitely find information there. Same with the Discord channels for writing and self-publishing. You can even go on X and other social media as well. X, Instagram, you know, all these social media platforms where authors congregate. You will also find editors congregating, and if not, writers talking and recommending the different editors that they've worked with. Okay, so that was all the information that I wanted to share with you guys today in regards to types of professional editing you can get. I hope this video was useful. Do let me know down in the comment section if you are currently looking for an editor and what kind of edit you think you need for your current manuscript. Also, let me know if you've worked with editors in the past. What kind of edits did you do and what was your experience like? If you want to see my experience working with editors, I have some writing blogs that I can definitely link to at the end of this video and down in the description, so you can see kind of my experience of how I found the editors and how it was to work with them. And I have a lot more information on the process and how the edits looked like and things like that in those videos, so definitely check them out if you're interested. But that was it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time with a new video. Bye!